Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're back to talking about a trend that is prevalent on TikTok right now. This trend I'm sure exists on other platforms. We're just talking about TikTok because a lot of the TikToks about shifting realities have been garnering a lot of attention. Now, before we get into it, clearly, obviously, what people do with their own bodies is their own choice. If you want to shift realities, it's none of my business. I want to talk about the actual concept of it as opposed to like shaming people who do this. We're just talking about the actual concept and how, in my opinion, it could be dangerous. But first of all, let's talk about what shifting realities really is. Now, there's this article from Vice, I know, that covers this phenomenon. They also relay the experiences of a couple teenagers. I don't really want to focus on that. I want to focus on the definitions given by a doctor, which we're going to get into. And then I want to show you a couple of TikToks so you just see what exactly I'm talking about. So what's the science behind the strange phenomenon? Grace Warwick is a therapist with expertise in anomalous experiences. She says that this isn't lucid dreaming, but is instead something called a transliminal experience. Transliminal experiences occur when awake and are most common when the mind is in a soothed state. For example, upon waking and before falling asleep, she explains. The instructions for shifting that abound on social media include being half asleep as a start point. They then induce repetitive music or counting backwards slowly. All these factors would induce a state conducive to a transliminal experience. An interesting aspect of the technique is the central part that a prepared script plays. I would liken the role of a script to creating a guided meditation or working with active imagination. So in a lot of the shifting TikToks that I've seen that have garnered the most attention, they seem to be specifically focused on books or movies, namely Harry Potter. Harry Potter is one that I see a lot, especially young women or teenage girls who want to transport themselves to be with Draco Malfoy, which, I mean, like, nobody can really blame them for that. That's what I've seen. So the TikToks I'm going to show you now are kind of examples of what you'll find if you look up shifting. I'm going to have to turn off the music because it's all copyrighted. So as you saw, there are various emotions. Like, some people are very excited about it. Some people are upset that they've come back from their DR, which is desired reality, as opposed to their actual reality. The thing is that I see this being a very double-edged sword because in one aspect, like the doctor said, I think that it can be somewhat like meditation. It can be somewhat like daydreaming. You know, like, I don't think it's inherently hurtful in the sense of everyone is involved in some level of escapism in life, right? Like, I mean, even watching movies is a way to, you know, escape your life for like 2 hours or something. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we use the watching movies as a form of escapism analogy here, if you watch a movie for 2 hours and then you can get back to your normal life, do the things you need to do, be healthy, no problem. If on the other hand, you choose to watch movies for 12 hours a day, and then when you have to return to your own reality, you're deeply depressed, you don't want to be there, you just want to run away from it, those are two very different experiences that have very different repercussions. This is even more complicated because in a way, I would say it's more psychological in the sense that you're training your brain to transport you somewhere else. And granted, if you have a very active imagination, it's probably a lot easier, but I can imagine it would be easy for me. And I also think I might have, you know, mental blocks because I know that transporting myself to certain headspaces wouldn't do me any good, specifically because if you have a desired reality that you will never attain, in the sense of, as much as you can be the hardest working person, but you're never going to be at Hogwarts in all that Hogwarts entails, as in Draco Malfoy, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger. That's never going to happen because it doesn't exist. You might meet the actors, you could go on areas where the set was, but it will never actually be Harry Potter. Like, that will never really be your reality. So what concerns me about desired realities is, if your desired reality is a certain goal, like buying a house with your significant other, something like that, that's something that you can work towards realistically and get to, as opposed to something that will never be except in your head. To me, that's very depressing, because it's just like thinking about something you're never, ever, ever gonna have. And like I said, if it's just like a fun thing to do here and there, there's no problem. But as you saw in the TikToks, like, some people seem devastated to come back to their actual reality. And I also wonder how that progresses, because I can't really imagine it being a nice feeling, because I've never done it, but I can imagine it would feel like being on the best vacation of your life, and you come back to your life and you're like, okay, so we're here again. So I don't know, I can just see it going both ways depending on how people manage it. I also typically feel uncomfortable with people trying to label their experiences as only something they can do, much like the starseed thing. I wonder how much of it is also so certain people can claim to be special and chosen, and a series of other things, which I think can be very unhealthy. So Helen, Allison, and Maeve were people who were interviewed, the ones I told you about, the teens who shift. So evidently Helen, Allison, and Maeve are all happy and healthy individuals, but Warwick says that these experiences can be different for different individuals. For the vast majority, the current trend is simply the next iteration of our relationship to altered states. Enjoyable and seemingly magical, but I would urge a sense of caution, she says. Key indicators to seek mental health support would be if the shifter experiences anything that created fear in them, or challenge their belief system regarding what we refer to as consensual reality. Also seek help if there is an ongoing drifting into altered states outside of intended shifting sessions. Yeah, I mean, like, that's also what concerns me, is if someone doesn't have any mental illnesses, I still think it can be dangerous. But on top of that, I also think specifically for people who do have mental illnesses, it seems like it scares me a little bit more, because if you already are depressed, if you already have anxiety, panic, whatever, I don't know how positive all those experiences would be in terms of when you actually come back to your real life as opposed to your desired reality. So then it says, thankfully, as Warwick points out, the vast majority of shifters have a good experience. She says shifters can return to their current reality feeling revived and energized by an experience that fitted with their belief system and limits. It's also clear that both the Draco and shifting communities foster a healthy online space. The community is actually a really nice environment and a great place to talk and express your common interests with people, Helen says. So frankly, I'm glad to hear that it's a positive community, because I kind of assumed these people would be extremely bullied. Like I said, I don't think it's inherently dangerous. I don't think it's inherently harmful, but I also really feel uneasy when people mention the concept of kind of leaving your earthly body and, you know, experiencing a different reality, but also because a lot of it, you know, inevitably sounds kind of culty. Like, that's kind of the number one thing cults do, is to tell you that you're gonna reach some magical new place in life. And I'm not saying this is a cult at all, but I think that's why it sets off my red flags, because I'm immediately skeptical about people who claim things like that. Anyway, like I said, overall, it could be either healthy or pretty detrimental, and I think that's why I wanted to talk about it, to really look into how it can be detrimental. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the